Okay, guys, on the web, I'm audible. Yeah, guys, let us wait for a few minutes. Basically, there was a rainfall over here, and not many people have joined yet. Let us wait for 5 more minutes. If not, I'll start the class as usual. Okay. Why not? In the meantime, if you have any questions on whatever we have discussed with respect to DSC or basic writing the configuration, you can ask me. All right. And in the meantime, I'll be preparing the environment so that we can get started. If you have any queries about it, you can ask that. Let me try to answer them while the people join. Yeah, I got one. Enter PS session hyphen computer name is failing for me. What is your version of PowerShell? 5.1. Okay. Did you set the execution policy to unrestricted? Do you have antivirus installed on your system? If that is the case, you have to basically disallow it to do. Sometimes the firewall gets stuck. 5906 is the port on which HTTP communication happens. So your firewall might be stopping it. If it is Windows firewall, wonderful. But if you have antivirus installed on your system, then PowerShell might not have a control over it. Yeah, that's very simple. Just set execution policy unrestricted. Yesterday, where did I got that azure.pem file? Okay, it was already present. It was already created. Oh, man. Okay, fine. Okay, so let us start the machines which we have uh, created yesterday. One, we have created the Windows 10 desktop on the cloud, right? So yes. So this is my desktop environment. For you, you don't need to have this machine because you already have desktops with you, right? Okay. And the next one was the AWS server. Yeah. Today also will not be doing much with server, but let us start it. Yeah. Do you remember what was my server's name? Yeah, this is actions instance state start. Good, wonderful. I think Ramesh, basically I'll ask Manikanta to look into that issue. I don't think so. We'll stop the class with this, but yeah, yeah. I'll basically post your question on. Let me do one thing. Let me just also tell you how to raise your problems which you are seeing, so that someone else can resolve it. Okay. If it let it, it could be me or it could be anyone over here. It is not auto-generated, Sajid. Don't worry about that PEM file right now. That is not our context. We'll be creating virtual machines anyway. It is just a matter of fact. I think we have created the virtual machine in the classroom, right? Right. So whenever you create a virtual machine, you have to give it a assign it to a key file. Okay. So whenever you, because in AWS you'll not have passwords. In AWS you just have keys, right? So while creating the machine, it will ask, do you want to use the existing key or do you want to create the new key? In my case, I've given the existing key because it was already there with me. Fine. Okay. So since for the people who have joined new, okay, I think I've just told this in the class. If I'm not, I'm very sorry for that. But https colon github.com/qt-devops. Just go to here, and in there you will be seeing two repositories. One repository is DevOps issues. Click over here. And are you seeing issues? In this section, there is issues. If you are having any problem, create a new issue from here. Okay, but for this, you need to have an account in GitHub. Just create an account in GitHub, much like how you create in Amazon and all of that. No cards and no other stuff. Just create an account in this and basically create an issue. The only check which we'll be doing is whether you are a quality or student or not. That's it. Apart from that, even in some cases, we don't even look at that. But yeah, I don't want to basically address the other concerns because we have a lot of work, right? And here, what is the whole point of why we do it is, if you see, there are already 49 issues which are closed. Over the period, we want to build a knowledge base, right? So whenever you have an issue, you just go into this section and you will find out what is happening. As of now, there are approximately 5 open, out of which 2 people are not responding, or not 3 people are not responding, and 2 have answered recently. It is not that I am the only person who responds to this. Yeah, eventually it is becoming like that, but I want all of you to participate in this. Suppose మీకు kubernetes తెలుసు అనుకోండి, you can answer that. You know Jenkins, you are good at Jenkins, try to answer that. There is nothing called as who gives the right answer. It is not a contest, right? Okay, fine. So please make a note of this link, and this link I'm pasting it to the people over the web. Okay. And I want, if you are seeing any issues, Ramesh, I think your issue can be posted over here. Yeah, please do that. Fine. Okay. So we have server, and basically on this server you can develop whatever it is, or you can take the Windows desktop also, whatever that makes sense to you. All right. Fine. Now, yesterday, if you remember, D drive, PowerShell, this is what we have done. We have not done a very wonderful job, but we have written some sort of a script which makes some sense. There is something called as import DSC resource, module name, PS, describe. Okay. So these are all the resources which we had. So today what we would be doing is we would be expanding on this. Okay. First thing which I want to understand is, did you understood this file completely, or are there any gray areas in here? ఈ ఫైల్లో అన్ని ఏరియాస్ అర్థమైనాయా, లేదంటే are there any gray areas? This is a very simple file. It consists of configuration, which is a logical grouping of telling what is that you are doing. Since it is my first stuff, I have written as hello world config, but actually I'd be writing configurations like SQL server config, so which consists of all the steps to configure the SQL server. Fan వేసుకుంటే చేత్తో ఎందుకు ఇసురుకుంటే గాలి ఎక్కడ వస్తుంది? Fan వేసుకుంటే. Okay, so basically whenever we go through this, we'll have three important things. Configuration, which is logical grouping. It has nothing. Configuration is a name which you will use basically, and then you will have node. Node will tell you on which machine it will run. Since till we know how to write a decent script, we will be using localhost. That is for sure. Then we will go to two models of pull and push. Okay, but then we will write something called as resource. We'll write something called as resource, and resource will have a syntax, and you have to tell what is that you want. Right? So in this, do we have any issues or concerns? What happens if some other text other than test.txt is written in that file? See what happens. Okay, we have the file, you have PowerShell in it, try to run it through and just check what happens. Okay, if it is a matter of concern for state, it would change the text. If it is not a matter of concern for text, then it will not do anything. So that depends on whether the state is present in that case or not. Right? Here the file state, to my knowledge, is basically on present and absent itself, not on content. Not on content. Okay, but there are other resources. We'll go through there. But the whole point is, are we good on this file, or do we have any doubts over here? We are good. Okay, wonderful. So dollar ps version table dot, we are 5.1. Okay, let me see if I have Chaco installed over here. Chaco hyphen version, not installed Chaco. So how can I install Chaco? We have done this, right? Yeah, you can either do this or this. Let me do this. Okay, done. Now let me try this. Chaco hyphen version. Did I got it? What are the things which I want? I want Visual Studio Code. So Chaco, how will I install it, man? This is the third time which I am repeating about Chaco in this class, right? Chaco done. నేనేం మాట్లాడకుండా దీంట్లో శబ్దాలు ఎలా వస్తున్నాయి? Okay, fine. Prepare your environment, and I am doing this on server, but actually you have to do it on desktop. I'm doing it on the server, but you have to do it on your desktop, right? Okay, so Visual Studio Code will be installed, and after that I'll be using this machine to develop scripts, and I'll be running the scripts over here. Okay, so PS session, did we enable over here? Did we remember enabling PS session? How to do that? What are the commands? enable PS session, skip network profile check -force, right? Okay, fine. In Windows there is one issue, remember that whenever a path is set in this variable, right, it might not automatically reload. So for example, you have installed, you have changed the path, you have changed the path outside this PowerShell, right? And then you try to see the path value as it is, it updated in this PowerShell. By default it will not, it will still have the older values because they are not read every time. That's how Windows works, right? One way of reading the environment variables or reading whatever has been changed is execute this command, refresh env.cmd. So whenever you do this, what happens is it will try to reload the environment variables, but not guaranteed to work always. Remember that. Best way is close PowerShell, relaunch the new one. This could work, but always the best way is relaunch the PowerShell. So basically you'll not have this problem on Linux machines, because in Linux every time the values are loaded automatically, right? So let me create a new folder, PowerShell DSC, right? And let me open this with Visual Studio Code, and I'll be writing scripts over here. The whole reason why I want to write it over here is I want to just check some of the server details over here and all of that stuff. Oh, man. So it says you don't have Git. Yeah, I know I don't have Git. So how do you install Git? Choco install Git -y. I think things are very simple when you know the CLI, right? If that is not the case, you have to go to the website, download the stuff, right? And server accessing internet is not that easy. You will get that some except you have to add exceptions every time, right? Okay, fine. Let this be ready. Let us wait for the Git to be installed. Good. So Git is also done. One step is what you can do is refresh env and then see whether you have something called as git -. Version. Are you seeing this? This was the problem which I was trying to tell about. And now what you do is you just close this and you have to just relaunch the new PowerShell, because whenever you're relaunching, now the environmental variables are loading. All the details about your system will be loaded now. Now let me do this. Git -. Ah, it has not installed. Good. I missed something. It's okay. I'm saying git bash here. So that is more than enough, man. It has not added to the path variable. Okay. Git is installed, but somehow it has not added to the path. It's okay. Now let me go to my folder. See PowerShell DSC, and I want to open this with Visual Studio. Good. Okay. Now what we'll do is, what was the extension which I have said about yesterday? PowerShell from Microsoft. Just install. This is your dev environmental setup, whatever I have done right now. Okay. So apart from this, yesterday I've said one step. If you are working on Windows 7 machines, you have to use Choco upgrade PowerShell. Was it successful? No, not happening on this machine. Ah, wonderful. Okay, fine then. So now let me create a folder and let me write sample -1. Okay. Now let us identify a task. Okay. The task which I want to write it over here is I'll create something called as readme.md. Okay. So this is what I want to do. Ensure, okay, the directory is created at some location. Okay. So the some location I'm calling it as C drive temp. Okay. Download. Okay. I'll not download. Okay. Install. I'm installing some software. Some .NET framework version. That's it. This is a task. So you have been asked to do this, and for this you want to use PowerShell DSC, right? Script doesn't change. Whether it is pull model or push model, the configuration which you are going to write doesn't change. Are we clear? And then we will add steps like this. Okay, these are the two steps. Slowly we'll do this. Install, or not install. Enable IAS server. IAS server is a Microsoft's web, and it has some application server capabilities also, right? Install Microsoft SQL Server, right? Deploy .NET app to uh, these are the steps. So you have taken the server. First, what you have to do is let us just start with a very basic thing. You have to create a directory. You have to create a directory in ctemp. Okay, and then probably you might need to change the environmental variables of temp to this, whatever it is. Right? That will not go that far. And then you have to install some .NET framework version. You have to install Microsoft SQL Server, enable IAS server, and then deploy your application, because your application needs is written in .NET and which has a database which is Microsoft SQL Server. So how will you do that? We can do all of this from IAS server. But let us see at the first thing. First thing, I don't think so. We should know how to do it. Directory create చేయడం అందరికీ వచ్చుగా? Yes. Okay. So now let me create a new file which I'll call it as trail config dot. It is not required that your configuration and file name has to match, but it is a good practice. So I can, when I am writing, what is the first thing which I write in this file? Configuration. And you can write any name for this configuration. It is just not that it has to be trail config, but it is a good practice if you are using that. So trail config. Good. Size is it too much small, or is it okay? Okay. Better? Yes. Okay. So trail config, and then what is it I would be writing here? First, import the DSC resources, because you have to use resources, right? You have to tell from where do I need to get these resources. That is the first step. And next, you will write a section of good. Intena? Pardon me? Yeah. Good. So resources in, yeah, that's it, right? Okay. Now, whenever I'm importing these DSC resources, when I'm importing this DSC resources. Let me see if I can get some help. Let me see if I can get some help. One is the resources which I have shown you yesterday, which were like file resource, server resource, Windows feature resource, right? Do you remember this page yesterday, which I opened? So I've written something like PowerShell DSC tutorial, and then we have gone into the stuff, this Microsoft documentation page, okay? And then, okay, I've done all of that, okay? DSC resources, and then there was something called as built-in DSC resources, and when we clicked on that, we have seen certain stuff, right? These were the built-in stuff. But are these enough for the survivor? Do you think are these enough for the activity of DevOps work? మనం చేసేదానికి ఇవి సరిపోతాయా? Yes or no? They will be enough? I don't think so. Because let us assume that tomorrow if I find a resource which does this IAS installation directly, rather than me going and writing everything again and again, right? So these are the built-in resources, and there is something other world which is called as custom resources, which is called as custom resources. Custom resources are written by Microsoft, or written by PowerShell community, or you and me also can write it. But our focus during this class is not writing PowerShell DSC resources, but rather than using them. All right. So there are two kinds of resources. What are they? Built-in and custom. Built-in list is very small. They will have very basic Windows kind of features, right? But apart from that, you have apart from that, you have basically custom resources. So let us look at some custom resources. There is something called as PowerShell gallery. Okay. So are you seeing items over here? Click over there. And what is the category which you are interested in? DSC resources, right? Item types, it doesn't matter for me. Okay, module. Okay. So are you seeing some items over here? Yes. So for example, I want to do some web administration, networking activities. So these are all the resources which you can import, right? But if you want to import the default resource, we use this. This is for built-in resources. If you want to use the built-in resources, you will be just saying import DSC resource. I'm interested in the module name, which is PS desired state configuration. But let us assume you want to do networking. Then you might be writing something like import DSC resource hyphen module name X networking. Then you will get that networking capabilities. All the resources which are present in this, which is with respect to networking, you can start using them, right? So resources are of two types. One is built-in, the other one is custom. So you can also write these resources, but our focus is not that. Our focus is strictly not writing resources. We are still stick to using of them, right? So there are many stuffs. Let you just come now. Let us assume that you want to work on Active Directory. So there is X Active Directory. You want to create the SQL server. There is an SQL server. These are all the resources which are done by. Resources are generally from PowerShell team or community resources. And by the way, all of this resources code is open sourced. It is present in GitHub. All the code of it, okay, is present in GitHub. If you really want to look at how the code looks like, how they have built in their own resources, you can go and look at the code in it at any moment. So that's the whole stuff over here. Whenever we are speaking about resources, there are two kinds of resources. One is built-in, the other one is custom. Built-in list is small, but custom resources can be huge. But try to take the resources which are from Microsoft PowerShell team. Now, let us assume I go into this SQL server. Okay. So what is he saying now? If you want to use this, you have to execute that command. Install module and give the name as XSQL server. Then that module will be downloaded onto your system, right? So there is an install module command, right? And now PowerShell DSC, okay, syntax commands. This is a very useful command, okay. So let us see what happens over here, okay. I don't know what I want to do, but let us assume that I am just doing this. Get DSC resource, and I'm giving name, okay, and I give the name as network. It says you don't have anything, okay, okay. I'll not do anything. I'll just say get DSC resource. Let us see what happens. So what is it saying? You have the following DSC resources, and all the DSC resource belongs to which module name? Because that is the only module which you will have on your system by default. That is the only module which you will have on your system by default. Once you install the other modules, like install module X networking, shall I do that? Right? Install module, right? What is that? Install module. Yeah, let me go with SQL Server. Hyphen name X SQL. You have to match the name, right? X SQL Server. Okay. So for general Windows administration, there are already all the PowerShell DSC reusable elements all present. In Windows Server, what is that you do? You would manage Active Directory entries. You would manage IAS server. You would manage SQL Server. All right. You would manage firewalls and you would manage DNS records. And you have everything for that. Pardon me? ఏ కలర్ విజిబుల్ అవట్లేదా? ఇది సరిపోవట్లేదా? ఇంకా పెద్ద చేయనా? ఓకే. ఎందుకులే అమ్మా, ఇలా లేకపోతే మళ్ళీ నేను కమాండ్ లైన్ లో వర్క్ చేస్తున్నట్టు ఉంటుంది. ఆ కలర్ ఉంటేనే పవర్ షెల్ లో పని చేస్తున్నట్టు అనిపిస్తాను. ఓకే, I'll increase the font size, right? Or I'll change the font. That I can do it for. Okay, font Lucid Console. Let me go with Microsoft Gothic. I'll do this. Only bold fonts, right? Better? మొహమాట అని చెప్తున్నావా? Right. Okay. So now let me execute the same command. Get DSC resource. Am I getting some extra commands now? Yes. Okay. So you can install multiple modules in your system and reuse it. And now let us see what are the different SQL Server stuffs which we have. You have something called as XSQL Server alias, XSQL Server login, right? Shall we install networking? Okay. So how would I do that? Install module name, and we have just seen the name was X. Done. All right. So let me now do get DSC resource. You will have more. So what will you do now? I want to see all of them. Okay. So now see what are the different commands which we have. Suddenly the things have started appearing good. We have file, we have archive, we have environment, we have group set, we have all the PowerShell desired state configurations. And suddenly we see something called as default gateway address, DHCP client, right? And IP address, net adapter, all of that, right? So based out of my needs, based out of my needs, I can find out, I can install the modules and reuse them. I can install the modules and reuse them, right? And all the modules are generally present in PowerShell gallery. Now you should be able to find out what is that I am trying to do. What is it I am trying to do? So for example, let me go over here and let me say that, yeah, this is all good, and I'm interested in doing something in AWS. Okay, okay. One thing, AWS with respect to DSC resource, there is not much, right? General, remember that every module might not be a DSC resource. It might be a PowerShell functions, right? But as of now, we are interested in DSC resources. Don't forget that. If you don't do that, when you select AWS, what you are getting is these are all commandlets. This is general script executions, right? So now I'm interested only in DSC resources, and let me say if I have, let me see if I have something in Azure. Okay, fine. I have 16 DSC resources for Microsoft Azure. Yeah. So whatever the stuff which you are seeing, and whenever you see the stuff, the things might be from different people. Even you and me can publish the stuff over here, right? If you know how to basically write them. So for example, there are people like individual people trying to do it, but in enterprise, never try to take this. Always try to take the stuff which is from PowerShell team. These are organized, right? They have all sorts of stuff. Now, good. We got to know at least how to install and what is the stuff which I am getting and what is the command which I am using. Get DSC resource, right? Now I can get the DSC resources by module name also. I can get the DSC resources by module name. Shall I execute this command? By the way, I don't have that module installed on my machine. Let us see how it behaves. Yes. Okay. So what should I do now? These are all scripts. So installing it on your machine will occupy only the size of KBs. It is not GBs download, right? So what will I do now? Install module hyphen name x hyper. Done. Now let me execute the same command. Yes. And all of these resources, whatever you are seeing, I can use in my configuration. So how will I use it? Let us assume I want to use Hyper-V. What would be my statement? If I was using the PowerShell DSC, my statement looked something like this. The basic built-in commands. In this case, import DSC resource hyphen module name, and you know what is the module name which you are trying to import. So your stuff would be, how will you write this? Import DSC resource hyphen module name, and what is the module name? Whatever it is. So X hyper. That's it. The moment you do this in this configuration file, you can use all of these resources. If you don't do that, it will tell I don't know where your resources. Are we getting the point? Right? So now get DSC resource module PS desired. So yesterday we have used a module called as file. We have used we have used a resource called as file. If I have to use a file, I have to basically tell that I am belonging to this module. Yes. So that's why we had to write something like import right? Desired state, import DSC resource from the module, which is PS desired state configuration. The moment you do that, you can do all of those activities. You can do all of those activities. Making sense, right? Okay. So now, even though this list is small, is it just this or do we have more? We have more. We have more. This is just a built-in list. Whenever you want to do basic stuff, this is enough. Basic stuff, this is enough. So now let me go to the file resource. Okay. So now we have looked into all of this, man. So file resource is good. So let me not go into file resource. Let us use something called as environment resource. What is the environment resource? Is used to manage environment variables. So shall we create an environment variable just for fun using PowerShell DSC? And now let us see what are the things which you can use. You can just say environment and you can tell what is the resource's name, whatever name which you want to give, and then name of your environment variable, and then basically ensure will tell you whether you want that environment variable to be present or absent, and then there is something called as path, right? Defines the environment variable that is being configured, and I'm not really looking into this path. Depends on, not worry about it right now, but value is equals to whatever value which you want to set. So what I'll do is I'll create a variable, create an environment variable, right, called as what shall I create? Just for fun, let me create java underscore home, right? And then I'll set it to some directory. Make sense? So how should I write it? What is the resource which it is in? Environment resource. And this resource belongs to which module? PS desired state configuration. So not this, we are writing it over here, right? So here what should be my module name? PS desired state configuration. That's a module name, right? PS desired state configuration. Whenever I do this, I can use a resources whatever that are listed on that. So first I have to tell where it has to execute. Where it has to execute is node. And in the node I'm telling that I want them to be executed on a localhost, because as of now I've not configured really the other part. Once I know how to do this, then the rest of the stuff is configuration and pushing this whatever you have written, right? And in this, what is that I want to do? I want to create an environmental variable. I want to create an environmental variable. So what is the resource which I can use for this? I can use a resource which is environment. And for the resource, I have to give a name. I have to give a name. So my name for this resource is Java underscore, let me call Java env. This is a name for myself, right? And then in here, let me go to the documentation. What are the properties which you are seeing? You have seeing name, and you are seeing very much important value is value, name and value. So now let me go over here and then I'll write something like name is equals to Java, Java underscore home. Value is equals to some path ideally, right? So let me call it as C drive colon. It's okay. I know that in this machine Java is not installed, so I don't think that this will impact. But ideally, remember one thing: whenever you want to change environmental variables after you do some PowerShell DSC configuration, you can do using this. Right? Now, is this enough, or do I need to do anything extra? What is that I have done over here? I've said you one important thing yesterday, if you remembered. Yeah? ఏంటండి? Okay. 1 minute. Let me just bring it down. Yeah. Or else I don't need this shell itself. Let me go over here. So this is just declaration. What is this? This is declaration. Declaration will not help you, right? When you run this, you will get what is the file which is required for us for the PowerShell DSC to work? MOF file, right? So whenever you do this, MOF will not be generated. MOF will be generated when you are using this. So to use this, how will I use this? I'll come to the down and I'd say that I want to use trail. The top, whatever you have written is a declaration. You are telling what has to be done. The second line, whatever you have written after this, you are calling it. You are calling it. So 14th line is execution, and whatever we have defined from 1 to 12 lines is basically what? Declaration. Basically declaration. So till here, do we have any doubts, or is it looking simple or difficult? Yes. Okay. Now let me see. There is what happens if yeah, that is fine. I think okay, good. So shall we execute this? Okay. Now in which folder I am in? Okay, sample one, and I have trial config, and basically I want to open PowerShell from here. Okay, one way is you already have a PowerShell. You already have a PowerShell. So let me go over here and then say cd. This font is not looking good here. It is showing something else. I know it is. I want bold fonts, but let me take. Yeah, good, better. Yeah. So fine. What is the first thing which I have to do? I have to execute this PowerShell file. Did I execute this file as PS1? Yes. So how will I execute this? What is the file's name? If everything is right, whenever I do this, okay, 1 minute. Oh boy. Whenever I do this, I should get this localhost dot MOF file, right? And after that, what should I do? Start DSC configuration, path, and what will be the path generally? The name of your config file, and then we give minus weight. Fine. Okay. Oh boy. Okay. So what is it happening? LCM, local configuration manager, has came into play. First, it has started set, and it has looked into what is the resource which I have to use. I have to use a resource called as environment. And in the environment, if you see, before applying, it has executed test. It has executed test, and then not found Java underscore home environmental variable. So what it does? Basically, it starts set. It has started Java underscore home environment variable with C colon temp. Right? So now, as usual, whatever I have promised in PowerShell DSC is, it is idempotent. It is idempotent. So let me run this again, and let us see what happens now. So did it execute it again? First it has started. It has found out that I have to use a resource called as environment. Good. Then it has found out what is that I have to do. I have to basically set the environment variable, which is environment variable, and then it has started test. Then it says there is already an environment variable with value with Java underscore home, which has value C colon temp. So I don't have any work to be done. What it has done? It has skipped. It has skipped. Right. Now let me do refresh, or why to do refresh? Let me go into the section where we always do that. Where is the computer section over here? Server manager, local servers. manage. Wow. This for me is the most easiest way. Yeah. Properties, advanced system settings, environmental variables, and are using Java underscore home. Yes. Now what I will do is I will edit this and I'll call it as D drive colon temp. Yes. Okay. Now let me run this again. Is it setting now? Or is it skipped? It says that there is already an environment variable called as Java underscore home, but the value of it was D drive colon temp. But what is that you asked for? So what is it has done? It has changed. So when I was running this script for the first time, when there was no environmental variable, what was the result? This script has helped me in creating a variable, environmental variable called as Java underscore home, which has a value called as C colon temp. Second time, right? I had the same stuff. I had Java underscore home variable and it has already had the value which I want. When I executed the script, did it do anything? No, it has just checked. Since everything was good, it has not done anything. In the third time while I was executing, what is that I have done? I have changed the environmental variables value. It has identified that, okay, whatever you are asking for and whatever is present, there is a deviation. There is a deviation. So basically, I am going to set it back to whatever you have asked for. So what is maintained throughout the script? State. What is maintained throughout the script? State. So that's why it is very important that you use scripts like this. Even Chef does the same thing. Tomorrow Ansible is for this. The whole point of this stuff is here, nowhere you are telling what is the command that is required for you to run this. Avuna? So are you telling which command to be run? How do you set the environmental variable? Right? Or did you ask what is that you want? ఈ స్క్రిప్ట్ చూస్తే మిమ్మల్ని ఏం కావాలో అడుగుతుందా, ఎలా చేయాలో చెప్తుందా? వాట్ ఈస్ ఇట్ డూయింగ్? ఈజ్ ఇట్ టెల్లింగ్ వాట్ హ్యాస్ టు బి డన్ ఆర్ హౌ ఇట్ హ్యాస్ టు బి డన్? హౌ ఇట్ హ్యాస్ టు బి డన్ చెప్తుంది. ఎస్, డూ యూ అగ్రీ విత్ మీ? వర్షం పడిన రోజు క్లాస్ చెప్పకూడదు అనుకుంటే కట్టేద్దు నువ్వు, గొడవ లేకుండా ఉంది. వేర్ ఈజ్ ఇట్ టెల్లింగ్ హౌ? హౌ అంటే ఏంటి? ఎలా చేయాలో చెప్పాలి, రైట్? హౌ ఇస్ యు ఆర్ టెల్లింగ్ basically the steps of how it is being done, but are you doing that? No. What is it you are trying to tell in the script? I am interested in an environmental variable which is called as Java underscore home. It should have a value of stuff, and basically I have not even written ensure over here. So ensure is equals to present is a default value, right? If I want to delete this, what will I do? Right? Are you telling about how to do or what has to be done? That's it. That's the whole point, right? Good. Okay, now I've created the environmental variable, right? Let us do something else. What shall we do? ఇందులో చూసి చెప్పండి, ఏమైనా సర్వీస్ స్టార్ట్ చేద్దామా? రైట్? సో shall let us create, shall we find out some service and let us start it? Right? So what is that again when I want to start this service? So which module does it belongs to? As of now I am going with built-in resources, so it is import dsc resource hyphen module ps desired state configuration, no conflict. And then node, we have decided that till we basically know how to write the scripts, I am not going to change the server, so node is localhost. Now what would happen here? We will have one more step over here, one more, okay, resource over here, right? So can I do this now? Hash is a comment, by the way. You are just saying set environment variable. Have a habit of writing this kind of stuff because you will come to know why you are done that. Right? And now, what is the stuff which I want to do? Start service, and let us find out what is the service which you'll use. Uh, services.msc. So okay, let me use this print spooler, very safest service, because if you stop this service, control P will not work. Then valla manaku vachina ibbandi em ledhu. Right? Anyway, we are trying to do this. So what is the name of the service? Print spooler. Good. Now let me go to the services documentation. What is service telling? In service, you have to tell service and whatever resource name which you want to call it. Right? And then he's trying to tell what is the name. What is the name of your service which you want to work on? And then what is, there is one more thing which is called as ensure. Right? So the service has some ensure state, and ensure is basically used for installing, but we are not installing now. Print folder is already present. So there is one more property. If you look at, there is something called as state. And what is the state which you are seeing values there? Running. So shall I stop this service? Yes. So what do you think? What do you think you should? What? How do I write that? So service. Can I write this? You just tell me whether I'm writing it right or wrong. You really don't need to do a lot of stuff over here. So what is the resources name? Documentation prakaram resource parent service, and then you have to give name of the service. Let me call it as, this is just your name of the service, don't, this is not a value. So printer. Now in this properties, whatever you are setting, these are important. So what is the property name? What is the name of the service? Print spooler. Okay. And then state. What is the state which you want it to be? I want it to be. So what is this script does now? This script will basically see and create an environmental variable called as java underscore home, and then it stops the print spooler. But we are not telling it how to do. We are just asking what is that we want. Okay. If you read this file in English, what I'm trying to tell is, okay, yeah, create a configuration for me, which I'm calling it as trail zone, right? And I want to run whatever I'm telling right now on my local machine. And what I want to do is, I want to create an environmental variable called as java underscore home, which should have a value of c colon temp, and stop the print puller service. In all of the statements which I have made right now, there is nowhere where I have told how, what has to be done. I have just told what has to be done, not how it has to be done. Nowhere I have just told about yala cheyal, how to create an environmental variable. Are you using the export command? Are you using the set command? Or are you right clicking on the my computer and basically clicking on advanced properties and doing it? I'm not bothered. PowerShell DSC is knowledgeable person. He knows how to do the stuff. You have to just tell him how to do. You have to just tell him what you want. There is nowhere you have to tell, okay, how చెప్పామంటే అయిపోయినట్టే, right? ఎలా? No. Right? Are we good? Yes. Okay. So now I have to create, right, one more network interface. Let us assume I have to create one more network interface. So what will your typical steps be? You will find a resource, right? And in that resource, you will go through the resource, go through the examples, and you would basically set and use it. And sometimes the resource might not be over here, import DSC module name. That might not be enough. So you might be adding one more import. So import DSC resource hyphen Module name, let us assume X. So now what would happen with this statement? All the X network related, okay, all the modules which are with respect to X network can be used in your system. So we can have multiple imports also, right? But for this case, we don't require it right now for whatever work which you are doing. So is it looking good? Yeah. So what are the configurations which we will create for our applications configuration management? Daily developers build the code and that has to be deployed on some Windows environment. And for our application to work on Windows servers, it will have certain infrastructural needs, right? So .NET version that should be installed is 4.5. So now let us assume that a new version is committed by your developers where they require 4.6. So you go to the PowerShell DSC and change the .NET version from 4.5 to 4.6, because you are not telling how to install. You will be basically telling what is the version which you want, right? And then enable IA server, install Microsoft SQL Server, whatever it is, you will be writing in this fashion. And this can be called from any continuous integration machine, including Jenkins. The only capability that the PowerShell machine should have is should be able to execute PowerShell. That's it. Should be able to execute PowerShell. And remember, there is one important conflict with this. This works mostly within organization. The concept of PowerShell DSC is mostly used within the organization because there is some Active Directory involved in it, right? But capability wise, it is no different than Chef. It is no different than Ansible and all of that. But it has some security constraints, right? Now, before getting into this, let us run through this. So what should I do? First, I have to, what does I have to do? I have to run the PowerShell script because I've changed it. Okay. Did I got MOF file? Yes. And now run the MOF file by basically telling what is the path. Are you seeing it now? First, it has started. Temp, basically, value is C colon temp. So it has not done anything. It has come down. Basically, it is setting now. Whenever it is basically seeing the printer service is started. So it is running by default. So it has stopped it. Now shall I run this script again? Both will be skips. After test, it will be a skip. So how is PowerShell DSC working on? What is the first step of PowerShell DSC for every resource? Test. Based out of the result of the test, it would basically either do the action or skip the action. Okay. Now let us assume that I go over here. Okay. And I refresh the state. Print spooler is stopped. I go and start it manually. All right. And now, as usual, I run the script. Okay. What has happened? Yeah. So this time, did it do anything? Jason, yes, or did it set or test? Skip. Set means it is doing the job. Skip means it is not doing the job. All right. So you are seeing the logs, right? Verbose is not required often, but while you are learning, it makes sense. Now, since I have not changed anything, now what is happening? Now it is skip or set? Skip. What is this? Right? Skip means I am not going to do because everything is in state. This is an important feature. Can't we write PowerShell like this? Yes. But the problem is when we try to write this in PowerShell or shell scripting, before writing every statement, you have to write a if condition. That will become a horrible code to really write. So that's why it doesn't make sense. Basically, bring it on with respect to this stuff. So today, what I wanted to focus on was there are two kinds of resources. One is built-in, the other one is custom. Tomorrow, what will you do is Active Directory setup అంటున్నాను కదా, దీంతోనే చేసే ప్రయత్నం చేద్దాం. Let us see, can we create an Active Directory server out of PowerShell DSC? Right? Yes. Okay. So if we are successful even halfway through, that is more than an achievement for us, because yeah, not many know about it. It is a very, I will not say new technology, very less explored technology, but very capable technology, right? Good. Any questions in the room? With this approach, can we set the precedence of the variable put in start of the path? Or, I'm not sure. Can we set the precedence of the variable java underscore home can be put in the start of the path if there is already existing? You can do all of that, right? You can do all of that. Yeah. For some reason, the PS1 files are not running, throwing an error. Trail config PS1 is not recognized. I'm not sure what is error which you have, but generally, whenever your execution policy is restricted, you will have that. If you are working on a local machine, please on your own machine make it as set execution policy as unrestricted. If you are working on your office's machine, at least you can do something called as bypass, right? Set execution policy as bypass or remote signed, both are okay. Fine. What is the difference between PowerShell and PowerShell DSC? Now you tell me what is the difference. I am not, ఇది నేను చెప్పానంటే నేను వారం రోజులుగా వాగిందంతా దండగని అర్థం. What is the difference between PowerShell and PowerShell DSC? If I am telling the answer, whatever I have spoken for last 1 week is of no value. You tell me what is the difference. In PowerShell, we will have what? What is that we would have? పేరు కూడా గుర్తులేదా? Commandlets, right? In DSC, what is that we are having? Configurations. In PowerShell, what is that you are trying to tell? Are you trying to tell how it has to be done or what has to be done? How it has to be done. In PowerShell DSC, yes, అంతేనా? అంటే నేనే చెప్పాను ఇది కూడా. అంటే వారం రోజుల్లో నేనేమో ఉపయోగపడే మాటలు మాట్లాడలేదు అనమాట, రైట్? దట్స్ అ డిఫరెన్స్. Basically, one is infrastructure as a code, the other one is a scripting language. That's a difference. Okay, one is idempotent, the other one is not. Yeah, fine. Okay, so in if you are writing PowerShell, you cannot write environmental variable like that. You have to know the command, what is the command which I have to use for creating the environmental variable. You have to stop the service, then you have to use the set service or start service, stop service, these kind of commands which you are using, where you are trying to tell what you want to do. But in DS you don't do that. Yeah, internally everything will be converted into PowerShell, that's a secondary story, but you as a user will only focus on what is that you want rather than how it is done. Fine. So that's what I have. I don't have any other points to be discussed. So what I want you to do is, okay, there is one stuff, okay, which is, let me just show you. Windows feature. Okay, so this Windows feature is nothing but appwiz.cpl. When you go to this add or remove programs, are you seeing this? Turn Windows features on or off. Go over here and there will be a Windows feature called as FTP. Yes, right? If I'm not wrong, you will have something called as FTP. Yeah, TFTP or whatever it is, right? So this TFTP or any thing in this, enable it and disable it. Turn this feature on or off. Tomorrow, whenever you want to install or deploy .NET applications, we will be enabling or disabling a feature which is called as IAS server. This is what would be. So these two will enable it. But for now, I don't want you to do all of that. Just go look into these three things. That is more than enough. TFTP client, Telnet server or Telnet client. On it, and off it, and add it to whatever you have done. So we are setting environmental variables, we are controlling services, and that's not just it. We also control Windows features. What features have to be come in? Okay. So for the people who are working on Windows 10, here you will see something called as Hyper-V also. Right. So using PowerShell DSC, you can enable Hyper-V. This is what I want you to be done. Okay, and now we will use this PowerShell DSC to do something which is good or difficult. So whenever you do want to do it manually, it is difficult. So what we do is first we deploy .NET application and then we'll go to the Active Directory setup. Right. So .NET application I'll deploy initially on the local machine, and then once we have an Active Directory, we can apply the same script on the enterprise world. Fine. Yes. Okay. So that's what I had for the day. And yes. Mm. Mm. Yes. Yes. Yeah. What is that is trained అంటే పని అదే పని చేస్తే ప్యాచ్లు వేస్తామే రైట్ టైర్ అంతా ఇప్పదీసేస్తామా లేదంటే వాట్ ఈస్ హ్యాపెనింగ్ టు ట్యూబ్లెస్ టైర్ నా ట్యూబ్లెస్ టైర్ ప్యాచ్ కి ట్యూబ్ టైర్ ప్యాచ్ కి డిఫరెన్స్ ఏంటి ఎఫర్ట్ the amount of effort which you put to basically achieve the task, that's a difference. Yes. And now you write this once, and it is not a very, for example, you look at the script, is it looking really like some programming language or some stuff once you understand the basics, right? This you can apply on thousands of servers. So if it was MCSE and all of that, yeah, we do administration here also, it is doing the same thing, but the whole point is how simply is it done, right? I'll update this script to my PowerShell DSC pull server, and within 10 minutes all the Windows servers on my office will be executing this configuration, which is not that simple in the world which you are speaking about. Yes. Yeah. Okay then. Thanks for your time. Yeah.